My husband gave me for our 5th anniversary the son my stepsister had with him, and his sister-in-law is my lawyer while my stepmother is defending me from her daughter, and my life has completely changed in the last few hours. I had always read about broken families and cheating spouses, but never about a spouse as stupid as mine. I guess I was stabbed in the back and left alone by the people who ideally should have been the closest to me. The people I trusted the most. Yesterday was our 5th wedding anniversary. My husband Clyde, who is 36, and I, who am 34, had invited the family and taken them out to dinner today. I wanted to spend this day with the people close to me because the last few years had been very exhausting and draining for me. Clyde and I had been trying to have a baby for more than 2 years. It had been very hard for both of us because we hadn't succeeded. There were so many doctor's appointments, fertility tests, ultrasounds, injections, treatments, everything, but with no results. So this year we decided we would stop trying because it didn't make sense. I suggested adoption, but he said he wouldn't be able to love a child that wasn't his, so that option was ruled out. Accepting that I wouldn't be a mother was therapeutic. There was sadness, of course, but also relief in letting go of all the hope and anguish I had been feeling for so long, and I thought Clyde agreed with that idea because we were both extremely frustrated with everything. So when the truth was revealed to me yesterday, I no longer knew what to believe. I'm still reeling from the shock, and I don't know when I'll feel better. If I could do something to make everything disappear, I would, but I can't, and that's the worst part. I'll give a quick background on my family. This is important for later. My mom died when I was 5, and yes, my dad remarried my stepmother when I was 9. I don't remember much about my mom, if I'm honest. Yes, I have photos, and my dad talked a lot about her when I was younger, but I don't have personal memories of her, at least nothing vivid. Sometimes I can roughly remember what she was like, but it's too blurry and hazy to truly know how she looked or felt. So my dad's new marriage didn't affect me the way it usually affects other children. Also because my stepmother is a wonderful person. My stepmother had a 4-year-old daughter when she married my dad. My stepsister and I weren't very close as children, but my stepmother was an amazing stepmom to me. It's safe to say I'm closer to her now than I ever was to my dad, and she never treated my stepsister and me differently. Even today, when I need advice, the first person I run to is my stepmother. My dad passed away 10 years ago. My stepmother and my dad never had children together, so it has mostly been my stepmother, my stepsister, and me. I wouldn't say my stepsister and I are hostile toward each other, just very different people and therefore not close emotionally. But yes, I never thought she would be the one to stab me in the back when we were children. I was more involved in extracurriculars. I was a cheerleader in school. I liked art and I was reasonably good academically. My stepsister, on the other hand, was focused purely on her studies. There were so many times my stepmother and dad tried to get her to do other things, if not something related to school, then just going out having fun, but she never leaned toward that. I tried to get her to join me too, but it wasn't her thing, and she didn't like me trying to get close to her. She seemed to believe she was better than me because I spent my time doing frivolous things while she was studying so she could get a real job in the future. And I mean, I guess she was right because she got a job at a great place and now she's doing her master's in business administration. I honestly didn't do that much with my life. I went to a mediocre college and worked a mediocre job. These things had never bothered me before, but now I can't help feeling incredibly insecure about everything. I keep thinking of all the ways she is better than me or all the ways I fall short because I can't think of another explanation for what happened. I can't believe she was the one involved in this betrayal. My stepsister has always had terrible taste in men. Exhibit number 1, my husband. They've always been unemployed, abusive losers, and this has led to a chain of failed relationships for her. It's always been a sore point for her and my stepmother, and I tried talking to her about some of her more questionable choices in men. One was even addicted to meth, but she always put up an endless wall so that effort became useless, and because she feels judged by us, she has distanced herself from both of us. It really didn't affect me because, like I said, she and I were never very close. If I had known exactly what she would do, I would have made different decisions and I would have cut her off when I had the chance, but I didn't stay close to her stinky ass, and now all of this is literally affecting me. So let's go to last night's dinner. My stepsister and my stepmother were invited, and Clyde had invited his parents and his brother and sister-in-law. The dinner itself went fine, but I could tell something was wrong with Clyde. I asked him a couple of times if he was okay, and he said yes, and then got annoyed with me for insisting. To be honest, he looked like someone had died. Maybe he already saw our marriage as dead, and he wasn't wrong. When we finished dinner, he said he had something to tell everyone. Honestly, I thought it would be a silly toast. There was no news we had to share with the family. Well, there was news to receive, only I would also be hearing it for the first time, although to be honest, some people clearly knew before I did. He said it probably wasn't the right occasion to say it, but he knew it was time for everyone to know so that gossip wouldn't spread later. He wanted to be honest with everyone and tell them that he and my stepsister were in love. That alone was already Bad enough, but it wasn't even the whole news, he said, my stepsister, and he had tried to fight their feelings for a long time, but he knew she was the wife God had destined for him because she was expecting his child. I looked at him expecting a smile and the usual got you of a prank that was already in terrible taste, but it wasn't a joke, and the only thing in terrible taste was my husband sleeping with my stepsister and my stepsister sleeping with my husband, and it was terrible because out of all the worst people to have an affair with, it had to be these two. I'm ashamed to admit it, but I went crazy. There are moments in news that make you lose your mind, and this was definitely one of them. It would have been much better if I had kept my composure, but in that moment all I could think about was smashing his skull against the wall. I walked up to him and grabbed him by the collar of his shirt to do I don't know what, because I wasn't going to splatter his brains across the table, but before I could do or say anything, my stepsister flew in to defend Clyde. The sister-in-law pulled me aside before it turned physical between my stepsister and me, because my stepsister also came at me and she had to hold me the entire time because I was ready to jump and slap both of them. He said of course the confession wasn't over. There was an even worse part, the part that hurt the most. He said everyone knew I was infertile, and because I was his wife and he still had a lot of respect if not love for me, he wouldn't abandon me. He said both my stepsister and he wanted my active participation in raising their child. They wanted to fulfill my dream of being a mother, and that way my stepsister could focus on her career and we would all be one big happy family. I wanted to get up and leave since they weren't letting me hit anyone, and the list of people I wanted to slap seemed to be growing by the second, and by the time he finished his little speech my mother-in-law spoke up and congratulated him on the pregnancy. Another person added to the list, and also someone who clearly knew what he was going to reveal tonight and was fine with it. Hello, like hello, it's our wedding anniversary and he's introducing his pregnant mistress to the world, and you people simply accept it. There was no way Clyde hadn't talked to them beforehand, and it felt like he had a prepared speech because the stupid and as useless as an airplane horn aka my mother-in-law said she knew that one day Clyde and I would have a family, and that no one could have anticipated the mysterious ways in which the Lord works, right? Because the Lord would look the other way after the worthless son had violated the sanctity of the most important bond between two people. The same Lord who supposedly said thou shalt not cheat on your wife, unless we're talking about some other Lord with questionable morals. I asked my mother-in-law in which passage of the Bible it says that, so I could have some light reading for when I go to the bathroom. She answered that it was an interpretation of the phrase God works in mysterious ways. When I replied it was something like, so if I understand correctly, any stupidity you come up with is the result of God working like Mr. Mystery. Does that mean that if I line the three of you up face to face and slap you, watch out for my hand working mysteriously by God's will? Then that would be fine. Now that I think about it, it looked like an episode of the Three Stooges with Mo, Larry and Curly. I don't know who is who. I'll leave that for the comments. I've been locked in my room since then, and although I know Clyde has come back, he hasn't come to talk to me, so here I am sitting in my room writing, more angry than sad, although I can't deny that the whole situation is complete emotional garbage. I haven't talked to my stepmother since everything came to light, and I know the situation is messy and extremely difficult for her because my stepsister is her daughter. So I don't know if I can expect any kind of support from her. I am completely alone. No one is coming to save me, certainly not my dear husband in whom I had made the terrible mistake of trusting and loving, and now I have nothing. Correction, I have a cheating husband and a backstabbing sister who is pregnant and more than willing to take my place in the house. Two filthy rotten pieces of trash is what I have. If this wasn't happening to me, I would be laughing non-stop because it would be so surreal. Update 1. I've loved that everyone gave their versions of who would be who in the Three Stooges. I had some really good laughs with that because there were solid arguments about who fit which one, like for example that my husband was balding, and they weren't that far off from reality. My husband, or now my ex-husband, isn't fully bald, but every now and then he made me check his head to see if his forehead was growing. I laughed at that and it distracted me from all the pain inside my stepmother, and I actually sat together and went through all the comments. I had thought I had no one in this nightmare, but that simply isn't true. I have her, and I never thought she would go against her own daughter to support me. I think even my stepsister hadn't anticipated it, especially because after her streak of bad relationships, Clyde to her is a good catch. He's stable, earns well, and is well put together. It isn't very hard to win that competition when her other contenders had yellow teeth from drug use and didn't know what year they were living in, and that's me being generous here because Clyde, with everything he did, in my opinion, doesn't seem much better. You've got a guy who cheats with the stepsister. Even the Lord would think the drug addict is the better option, and maybe, just maybe, my stepsister thought that if she ever managed to get a good man, even if he was someone else's husband, my stepmother, out of love and relief for her, wouldn't say anything. Unfortunately, that isn't true. My stepmother Didn't read any of my mother-in-law's blessed Bible passages to her misfortune. Now my stepsister is out of the house thanks to the scare. My stepmother came to the house the day after the anniversary incident and came straight to my room. I had barely fallen asleep. I was exhausted, so I didn't even hear her when she entered the room, and when I woke up I saw her sleeping next to me on the bed and I just hugged her and started crying. I felt like a child again, like the kid who got caught putting frogs in school lockers. My stepmother smiled, hugged me back and said she had actually come to help me pack. She said I was welcome to live with her until I was able to sort something out on my own, so at least I wasn't completely without support. We both started packing and I think Clyde could hear the commotion. I asked her if my stepsister was in the house and she said she hadn't seen her when she arrived. Clyde knocked on my door and said he wanted to talk to me, but my stepmother said I was busy and that I would talk to him as soon as I was free. We continued packing most of my things and my stepmother was the one who went into Clyde's and my bedroom to collect my belongings. When Clyde realized what was happening, he became frantic. He tried to stop her so she wouldn't reach the room I was in. He was pounding on the doors with all his strength, but I only opened it to give him a slap across his stupid face and then closed it again. He just stood there stunned, not reacting. My stepmother had already brought boxes when she came because she said she was sure I would realize that living here was toxic and unhealthy for me. It took us a couple of hours to get everything done. Then she called some of her coworkers to help move everything, so everything happened really fast, and I don't think Clyde expected me to take such a bold step in such a short amount of time. Hell, even I didn't know my stepmother had a moving team just a couple of calls away. When leaving, Clyde told me I was making a mistake and that he needed to talk to me just once, but my stepmother stepped between us and said that if he wanted to say anything to me he could talk to our lawyer who would be in touch with him soon. Clyde's face went white. He had never thought I would divorce him, but that is exactly what I will do with his damn filthy cheating. Yes, I need to free myself from this man so I can live a life with dignity, also so I can hand him over completely to my stepsister. She will think for a while that she has won, that she ended up with my husband and finally has a man who loves and respects her. Sooner or later she'll realize the mistake. That's why I better speed up the divorce as much as I can. Edit. My stepmother told me a bit of what happened after I left. In short, the sister-in-law and my stepmother were on my side, and on my husband and stepsister's side was my mother-in-law, Mo, as people have been calling her, although because of her curly hair I like to see her as Mo from The Simpsons. The sister-in-law and my stepmother told the three of them that they were insane for thinking I would take care of my stepsister's child, and they insisted that if all three of them presented a united front it would be easy to convince me. Even if I didn't have my stepmother and sister-in-law on my side I still wouldn't do it, no matter how much pressure they put on me. The rest remained neutral. Even so, I'm grateful to have people protecting. Update 2. At this point it's an open war. I've been living with my stepmother for a week. I feel a little better in the sense that at least I can eat and sleep. I still cry, but I know I will get back up. Clyde keeps texting me. My stepsister keeps texting my stepmother. My stepmother on her end has disowned my stepsister and said she is no daughter of hers and that she should make plans for that baby because she wasn't going to take care of it. My stepsister tried to play the card of your first grandchild, but my stepmother was fed up with her and yelled that she could shove her first grandchild up her ass. She is a sweet woman, but she's the kind who cannot tolerate human stupidity, and this is one of those pieces of human stupidity, the kind that explains why shampoo bottles need a label that says do not drink. I was worried about hiring a lawyer until Clyde's sister-in-law, who is a lawyer and a very good one, offered to represent me for free. She and her husband are on my side apparently, which is good because I didn't want this to cause any friction in their marriage. This was a total surprise because it was the exact opposite of what I expected. Clyde's brother John called me. He said he and Bianca, his wife, wanted to talk to me. I knew I would think Clyde had put them up to it, but he assured me Clyde had nothing to do with it and that they wanted to talk to me on their own. I agreed to meet them in a public place in case things got ugly, or they were lying. When I went there, to my surprise, they both offered their unconditional support. John said he couldn't believe Clyde could be such an idiot and that he was ashamed that a man like him was his brother. Bianca said Clyde had called her frantic, saying that I had threatened him and that I would go for the divorce and that he would need her help. She didn't commit to him but told me she would be willing to be my lawyer if I filed for divorce. She said she wouldn't even accept payment because we are family. Bianca had already defended me that night, but I didn't think she would go this far. She said she was disgusted with Clyde's behavior. Both she and John were, and they simply didn't want to associate with him anymore. Between them everything was over. They hadn't thought I would go for a divorce. I really don't know why everyone thinks I'm some timid little girl who won't defend herself. She said she had half a mind to convince me herself, but when they heard from Clyde that I was already thinking like this, they knew they had to reach out and offer support. I thanked them and genuinely felt better seeing even his family openly supporting me. I told them I would go for the divorce. That was practically the first thing that crossed my mind when he started announcing his news at dinner. That part is not up for discussion. I just hadn't had a lawyer until now because I didn't know any. Well, technically I did know one, but I didn't expect her to take my case because it involved someone close to her. But not only is she taking it, she seems so excited about the case that she even started talking legal strategies with me. Her husband calmed her down and said there would be time for that in a formal meeting at the office. I think she was hyperventilating, but she was as angry as her husband with Clyde for all of this. I went back and told my stepmother, and she was very happy too. She told me I shouldn't delay starting the paperwork because I needed to leave this behind and move on with my life. I'm planning to go to her office tomorrow to talk about this, although Bianca has already started working on it. Hello, I know it hasn't been very long, but somehow now I feel, especially after meeting with John and Bianca, that maybe, just maybe, I won't feel this bad for much longer. You know that feeling you get when you break up with someone and think you'll never be happy again. It doesn't feel so terrifying anymore, mainly because of the kind of support I've received. And I know that even if it's scary, even if it's unknown, I'll be able to navigate it because now I have so many people around me willing to help. Update 3 today, Clyde was served the divorce papers. It was a huge shock to him because he has been bombarding both my phone and Bianca's phone with text messages texting me. So I won't do this, which makes no sense, but was something I found out and we'll talk about later. Maybe it does, but texting Bianca because she is his family and because doing this to her is the betrayal of betrayal, she thought. Clyde was smart, but he can't see the irony in the betrayal of betrayals, and Bianca just sent him a laughing crying emoji and wrote, "What a shame. I don't think he has the self-awareness to understand what she meant, and honestly I don't care." I can't talk much about the case, but all I can say is that Bianca has filed a hard notice and it's going to take considerable effort on Clyde's part to win this. I had taken a few vacation days, but I need to get out of the house and do something. Staying inside only makes me overthink and drown in self-pity. Nothing good for my mental health, thinking and thinking about this all the time. I think they call it ruminating thoughts, but now is not the time for that. Now is the time to get up again and rebuild my life. I've decided to keep living with my stepmother. It feels good to have someone close, and she has enough space in her house, so that shouldn't matter. Besides, she's the one who offered for me to live with her. She likes having me around. I think she's also worried because I'm still in a fragile emotional state, and leaving me alone wouldn't be very wise. As for my stepsister, my stepmother has cut all contact with her. She has even publicly denounced her. So yes, the public rejection the couple wanted to avoid has come back to bite them in the ass with big fangs. They are being shunned by everyone in the family and the community except Clyde's parents, who don't care about anything except a grandchild. I get angry messages from my stepsister. Sometimes I don't read them, but I've been asked to keep them safe because they may help my case now about why Clyde wants to stay with me. I found this out through Bianca, since unfortunately we share the same demonic mother-in-law. My stepsister doesn't want a relationship as serious as the one Clyde wants. She expects to be boyfriend and girlfriend, but after all her past experiences she doesn't want to risk too much. She doesn't want something casual, but she also doesn't want the commitment my ex expects. Clyde likes having a wife. He expects to marry her soon, but she keeps telling him no, and she wasn't even sure about revealing it at dinner. That was Clyde's idea. She just expected him to tell about the cheating. She didn't even plan to keep the pregnancy, but my mother-in-law convinced her and expected me to take care of it. Yes, it's all very crazy, but with them I can't expect anything else now. Clyde has realized that she expected a long courtship, by the way, and that switching wives won't be as easy as switching cars. I'm sorry it's too late for him, but if he hadn't changed my stepsister's oil, none of this would have happened. Update 4: the divorce is already finalized and Bianca was a real lioness fighting for what is mine. Clyde has paid me financial compensation for the difference between our salaries. For a while he tried not to accept that, but the evidence of infidelity didn't convince the judge that he was the poor victim in this divorce. The house was sold and the remaining money was divided. I think everything worked out well because that money is allowing me to start a new life that the Lord knows I deserve. Well, at least mine. I can't say anything about my mother-in-law's. Clyde and my stepsister have begun a relationship, which is what Clyde didn't want, but she did, although according to my stepmother, who has heard from her daughter because she tried to reach out, she is not happy at all. Well, to begin with, her job has taken a hit because everyone there knows she cheated, got pregnant by her stepsister's husband, and looks like a Babylonian harlot. Those are my words, by the way. It's not that she's going to be fired, but she believes it has closed many doors in her field. She works in research and people know each other through the scientific publications they make for her. It's a total crisis. Worse yet, she'll soon go on maternity leave and she thinks that will be even worse for her career. I think that's all in her head, and nobody has died from stopping work for a few Months. Hey, I'm not a scientist, but I'm sure there are plenty of mothers who are and can juggle both lives. Besides, it's time she can use to research why she was stupid enough to stay with Clyde and then write a paper on it. Now all that's left is to find a place for myself so I can give my stepmother her space and rebuild my life. They're not kicking me out, but I want to give her her space. Update 5 time has passed when I last updated. Here it was about 2.5 years ago, and my stepsister still hadn't had her baby. Now she has a child over 2 years old who is being cared for by my ex-mother-in-law. It's unfortunate for the child, but there's not much that can be done. Trying to do something for him is like walking into a minefield with all the drama and all the things that have happened in the last few years. I'll start by saying that about 6 months ago Clyde and my stepsister got married, a ceremony no one saw because aside from a small part of Clyde's family, his brother and sister-in-law didn't attend, and from my stepsister's side I don't even know who attended. There weren't many guests. Here are some important details. Clyde changed his last name to my stepsister's, which luckily is not my stepmother's. He did it for several reasons, some they told me and others I think are also important in the equation. On one hand, my stepsister has seen her career stall. She thinks it's because she started a relationship with him and because she got pregnant, but I have acquaintances in her field, people who know what she's like and what things are like there, and the truth is she has become more bitter with her life in general. She teaches at the university besides doing research, and people complain she's one of the worst professors. Also her own colleagues complain she has become a bit irritable. She wasn't an angel before this, but it has definitely affected her, so she asked her husband to at least take her last name and that their son be registered with her last name too. My guess also has to do with the fact that her brother John hates sharing the last name with him. Some time ago they ran into each other somewhere where they had a normal fight after Clyde called Bianca a fat cow and John punched him in the face to shut him up. John said having the same last name as him, which is not very common, embarrassed him, and Clyde apparently also was angry at his brother for hitting him, so that made it easier to adopt my stepsister's last name. But I said at the beginning that the child was living with my ex-mother-in-law. This is because the marriage lasted only a few months until they finally divorced or dissolved it. Here comes another little bomb for you, because I know you're thinking that it was Clyde's fault because he cheated on my stepsister and she was an idiot for thinking he wouldn't do it to her. You're wrong. They were both cheating in the relationship. Clyde with a woman who is no one's stepsister, a step up for him, and my stepsister with one of her exes. No, not the meth addict. I think he died though, I could be wrong. Another ex who isn't much better and who basically broke up with her because her birthday fell on a concert he couldn't miss since all his friends were going. They didn't end on good terms because even though both were doing the same thing, they both blamed each other for everything. My stepsister didn't want the baby because she resented him for everything, and since my ex-mother-in-law was already caring for him most of the time, she has basically become his caregiver. My ex, well, I don't know, maybe the baby reminds him of my stepsister or of everything he did to throw his life in the trash. He also doesn't want to be a father. They're both giving money to my ex-mother-in-law to care for him, but that's it. Aside from the child, who I hope turns out well despite everything, the rest of the people, like my stepmother, my ex-brother-in-law and his wife, are doing well. I've started dating someone new, but there's nothing important to tell you. There are no wedding bells yet.